Okay, so now we're going to go through an example of creating a mashup. So last week we looked at using Yahoo pipes to try and pull some of the data together, suitable data to present in our mashup, but we didn't get to looking at how we then and we looked at the default representations that Yahoo pipes gives you. So there's the list, the gallery, and the map, depending on the type of data that you have in the pipe. But what we're going to look at this week is how we can take some of that data or some of those predefined visualizations and then put them within a web page. And so we can put multiple badges or multiple pipes badges within a web page and show them side by side, and that way we then therefore have the definition of the mashup. We've got multiple sources of data presented in a new interface, and hopefully they relate to each other in some way and provide some sort of useful information. So we'll be doing a possibly fairly boring and straightforward one today, but the idea is that it shows you the process, and then hopefully you'll kind of come up with heaps more creative ideas for your actual project. Okay, so I'm actually going to use a blog post that Cassie did and to provide some of the links for some of the resources, because she did a really nice blog post. Now, her blog address is exploringinterfaces.wordpress.com. So if you'd like to go there. So what we're actually going to do is create a mashup based on the upcoming state election that is being held this weekend. So something kind of contemporary and up-to-date. Hopefully there should be some constantly changing, updating data. So it'll be good, a good example of live data to use for a mashup. Now Cassie has put a couple of links to introduction to Yahoo Pipes badges. If you want, you can have a look through these links in your own time. There's a nice blog post here that someone else has done. Basically goes through, when I'm saying badges, I'm essentially talking about these visualizations that we looked at last week. So what you can do is you can take any one of those three visualizations and then embed them in a web page, and they call that a badge. So, you know, kind of like a widget or any other of those names that you want to talk about for embedding little bits of information. But that's what we're talking about. There's a post there. There's also a link to the Yahoo Pipes documentation on the badges, and it will give you essentially the same or very similar instructions to what I'm going to give you now. And it will also show you how you can style them up as well. So that will be a good link to refer back to when you're trying to do this, repeat this process again after this class. But I'm just going to take you through with this example. So there's a link to 3 different pipes here that we're going to use to get our data. And these are ones that Cassie has created, so we can open these ones up and have a look at them. There's a YouTube one, a news feed, and then a Twitter search pipe. So let's have a look first at the news feed. I'll click on that, open it up in pipes. You will of course need to be signed in to your pipes account, because what we're going to do is clone this pipe so you can save a copy of it to your own account. Okay, so the way we do that is this little clone button here. Once you've got the pipe up and running, I'm going to click on that. Alright, and that should have, once you've done that, created a copy. You should see now the title is changed to whatever it was plus copy. And if you go to My Pipes, you should then see that pipe listed at the top of your list. So while I wait for that to load, what I might do is get you to open the links to the other 2 pipes and do the same thing, make clones of them so you can save them to your own pipes feed. So there's the YouTube search one and there's the Twitter search one. Alright, so I'm going to clone both of those. It's the Twitter one, and okay, here's the YouTube one. I had to refresh that one to load it, so you might need to do the same. and I'll clone that one as well. So if you want, you can click on View Source on any of these pipes and have a look at how they're created. Okay, so that might be useful for if you want to do something similar to any of these to see which modules have been used to create these. Okay, so I'll look, for example, at the YouTube one. We'll edit the source here. Okay, and actually now my pipes list has loaded, so you can see those top 3 results are the copies of the ones that I cloned. So that's good. Now I have my own copy of these. I can modify that, and it won't affect the original one that Cassie created. So I'm going to have a look first at the ABC News one. It's probably the most simple one. While that loads, I might just look at the YouTube one. So the YouTube one, okay, is created with a few modules. The first one is the string builder module. Now, if you've done any programming, you'll know that string essentially means text. So this module just builds a bit of text, and each one of these little boxes, all it does is it joins them together, and you can see the output down here is a URL. Okay, youtube.com/rss/search/ and then queenslandelection.rss. And if we were to paste this into the browser, okay, we can see a big long RSS document here, which is simply XML. And so this contains information on the search results returned from that search going through YouTube. Now, how did Cassie figure out how to do this with YouTube? I imagine she just Googled it, something like YouTube search RSS, and she found instructions on how to do that. And pretty much any of these APIs, that's a place I'd recommend starting. First of all, looking for a way to get an RSS feed out of any data source, because that's going to be the simplest type of data source for Yahoo pipes to process, and then any other alternative methods from there on. Okay, but I'm not going to go through that process in too much detail, because what I want to focus on today is actually the getting of the data out of the pipe and into the web page. But you can see that that URL is then fed through a URL builder. I'm not sure if this module is actually completely necessary, because I don't think it changes the data from this point to this point, but that doesn't matter. And then the important module is this fetch feed module, which accepts as a parameter the URL to an RSS feed, and then parses that data for us and gives us a whole bunch of items. Okay, and you can see these items down in the debug window here. Okay, and there's information about each of the search results. So each of these items represents one search result as returned by that search URL. And you can see that they're generally related to the search terms Queensland and election. And within this information is a link back to the YouTube video, as well as a description which contains a thumbnail, and then I guess the description which appears on the YouTube page for that video. Okay, so now because these are formatted as RSS, Yahoo Pipes knows how to represent them as a list. So when we run this pipe, which I can do by, go back here. Okay, YouTube search, click on view results from my pipes list. Okay, while that loads, we'll have a look at this newsfeed one. Now again, this is fetching an RSS feed. Fortunately, RSS is a very common format for websites to provide if they want to provide you with information, you know, like we were talking about last week, where you can get information out of a website or a data source without going through its own web interfaces. So RSS is a very common standardized way of doing that. So you'll find a lot of websites that actually will provide RSS feeds. And as I said before, that the best way to find that is really just by Googling it. Okay, so this one is fetching the feed from ABC's news website. And then it's using this module here called the filter module, which is an interesting and useful one. Because if we look at the feed from the website, just as it is when we fetch it, you'll notice that there's a whole lot of news results that don't necessarily relate to the Queensland election. Now that makes sense because we're just fetching a general news feed. But what we can do is use this module called the filter module, which exists under operators, I think, somewhere. There it is, that one there. And what this allows you to do is, you've got one of two options. You can say, of all of the items that have been passed into me, either block ones that match these things or let them through that match these things. So what this one is saying is that only let through this module any of the items from here that where any of these rules are matched. And so a rule says, okay, show me a part of the item that you want to check for. So in this case, we're looking in the description. So we're saying let it through if the description contains Bly, the description contains Newman, or the title contains Bly, or the title contains Newman, or the description contains Queensland election. Okay, so that's just letting through anything where either the title or the description has those keywords. And what you'll probably find when you're using the filter results is you're going to want to look through the unfiltered feed and start to look for things where the keywords are there. And if things aren't being passed through, you might need to add some more keywords. If too many things are being passed through that don't relate, then you might need to add some more restrictive keywords. Okay, so by the time it gets through this filter, what we should see is that now the news stories, and you can see we started out with 242 plus 8, and once we do the filtering, we're down to 29 plus 8. Okay, so it's clearly filtered out a whole bunch of news stories and only let the ones through. And if we look at the descriptions of the title, okay, we can see why they've been let through because, for example, this one contains the keyword Newman, which we said if the item description contains Newman, then let it through. Okay, and they might apply to more than one of these rules. Basically, it's saying if any of these rules is passed, then let it through. Alright, and then obviously it's connected up to our pipe output, and then that gives us our final data. And again, if we run that pipe, we because it's formatted as RSS, Yahoo Pipes knows to show it in that, how to show it in that list view. Okay, so going back here, this is our Queensland election YouTube search one. Okay, that got the RSS feed, and again you can see that the list, essentially what the list does is it shows the title and the description of the RSS item with a thumbnail if it's there, and also provides a link based on that link attribute that's in each item that we saw in the debug window. Okay, so now the Twitter one, let's see if this loads fast enough. We'll have a look at the source. Okay, there we go. The Twitter one is very simple. Okay, again, Twitter provides a way to access search results as an RSS feed. Again, essentially by specifying a particular URL. Okay, this one here. And again, you'll find the particular way you have to format this URL by Googling it. There'll be instructions undoubtedly on Twitter somewhere for how to do that. And this one will return Twitter search results based on keywords, which are again specified in here, the same ones as in the filter module from the news feed. And that will display the search results as an RSS feed. Now, one thing you will probably notice with Twitter and Yahoo Pipes is that a lot of the time it doesn't work. So actually for today's purposes, what I'm going to do, and we might see if it does work. Okay, so this one has worked, and I'll give you the option of either using this as a badge like we used the other two. But if you find you're using Twitter for your pipe and and it's not working within Yahoo Pipes, then what I'm going to show you today is an alternative method that doesn't use Yahoo Pipes, but is just as easy, if not easier, to get Twitter data into the web page. Now, after much searching, I did find the reason for this. If you want to know the reason that Twitter doesn't work, it's because the Twitter API has a limit on the number of times you can actually hit it per hour per what do you call it? Not destination, but origin. So let's just say you have a website, you have your own URL. Let's say I have my website, daveswebsite.com, and I'm trying to interact with Twitter. If I've got a web page that does that on my website, every time I refresh and it interacts with Twitter there, it's going to use up another one of those limit. And if I have really heavy traffic to my website and I have lots of people clicking on that, and it's going to use it up, and Twitter's going to stop providing me that information until a certain period of time. Now, the problem with Yahoo Pipes is that every pipe that exists within Yahoo Pipes that uses Twitter is all being seen by Twitter as coming from the same origin. So there's going to be thousands of people using Yahoo Pipes that are going to be hitting Twitter all the time. So it's very common that Twitter's hourly limit of the number of hits that can come from Yahoo Pipes gets exceeded. So you may find you may have variable success. It may work for you this way, it may not. But the point is there is workaround, and I'm going to show you that as well. So from this point forward, I'm going to ignore this feed, which doesn't matter too much because the way that we embed the Twitter is the same. It's going to be essentially exactly the same as we embed the YouTube or the news feed. Okay, so now we've had a look at the pipes. I know the kind of data that I've got, and also kind of experimenting around with this, I found a couple of other things that I wanted to add as well. But what I might do is just draw up a little bit of a wireframe of the interface, what I'm going to want it to look like. So, which is a good idea because this is part of what you have to do for your week 6 submission as well, is come up with wireframe or wireframes for various ideas that you have that you're proposing for your mashup. Okay, so I don't have to have it implemented yet. Once you do a research, kind of figured out what data you want to use, and start visually designing or laying out some possibilities how that data might look. So, having already prepared this, I came up with the idea that I was going to have sort of this 3-column thing. I'm going to have 2 skinny columns on the left and right, and I'm going to have a title here. Okay, so that'll be like my heading just there, and up here I was going to have a picture of each of the main candidates. So let's put Can Do Me in there, and we'll put Annabelle there. And underneath here, what I want to have is I had a look and I saw that each of these candidates actually has their own Twitter feed. So I was going to have each of those there. And I'd let that fill up kind of this part. And then in the middle is where I was going to put the data that's mainly going to come from these pipes. So I'm going to have, again, sort of split into 2 columns here, or kind of like a grid. And for the top one here, I was going to have the news. And then here we'll have the YouTube results. Or let's just call it videos. Okay, and because I'm going to embed these as the badges, I already kind of know what they're going to look like. They're going to be these lists that are kind of divided up like this with little thumbnails, title, and description. Okay, and they'll be effectively the same. Now the videos are going to come out the same way, but what I want to do to these is style them a little bit differently so that the thumbnail is actually larger, and I don't care so much about the text. So I'm going to make the text smaller and the thumbnail larger for these. And down here, in my sleuthing around, I found a couple of other interesting things that I could embed. Here I managed to find a live stream to ABC News 24 channel. So I'm going to embed that there, so come election day, when everyone's glued to their seats during the poll counting, or more likely off at the pub not caring, then we can watch this and see how it's all going. And over here I found a Google map which actually has live data which has locations of where they're actually campaigning, so you can see where they've been going around the different electorates and so forth. So that's kind of the layout that I've come up with, and I want to kind of adjust the height of everything so it kind of fits nicely in this kind of grid like that. So that's what we're going to aim for. Okay, so first things first, let's just get the data onto the web page and not care about laying it out or styling it at all. And then once we've done that, we can start attacking the HTML and the CSS and lay it out and make it look a bit presentable. Okay, so what we're going to need is we can close the Twitter pipe, but we're going to need this view of both the Yahoo, the YouTube pipe and the news feed. So let me just get the news feed back up here. Okay, there it is. Okay, so while this is loading, I should just say that this is what I'm going to show you today is just one method of creating a mashup. Okay, and it's also designed to show you that Yahoo Pipes doesn't have to be your only tool that you use. Okay, we're going to combine a few different things. But the thing I will say about this method of embedding the badges is that we're somewhat restricted by the way that we can lay out the content. Okay, so it's going to essentially each of the individual badges is going to essentially look like this. Okay, we can do a little bit to change the CSS to style how that data looks, but we can't, for example, start injecting extra bits of data into each of these. That kind of thing we're going to have a look at next week, and it's a bit more complex. Certainly not something that you have to do, but this should provide you with a good base level for a technologically fairly simple way to still get your data into a web page. If you don't want to kind of spend heaps of time messing around with the nuts and bolts of it. But aside from that, our main flexibility is going to be actually how we lay them out on the page. So that's why it's important that knowing what this is going to look like, why we consider each of the different sources of data in its entirety and what's the best way to kind of lay it out and arrange it on the page. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, and feel free to follow along with this if you want, I'm just going to create a new blank HTML document in which to create my mashup. So if you want to do this, any editor that you choose. But yeah, it's up to you. If you want to follow along now or just watch me do it, I will upload the screencast of this when I get a chance, so it's okay. And I'll also upload the finished code as well, so you can go back and have a look at that. But what I'm going to do is create a new HTML file. And this whole thing, fortunately, is just going to be the one file, so that will be good. Okay, and I'm going to save it straight away in this folder that I've got on the desktop, just as index.html. Okay, and here we go. So I'm going to create an HTML5 document. Okay, just a very simple skeleton, nothing in it so far. And I'm going to bring up the preview page here if I can, so we can see what it looks like as I go. Let's just see if this works. Okay, there we go. Alright, so what I might do first of all is actually create some of these divs. So without laying them out, I'll create them so that I've got containers to put each of the badges in. So I'll create a div first. That will be my container div. Then inside of that, I'm going to create a div representing the 3 columns. So the column on the left, I'll give an ID of Campbell Newman. So that's going to be all about him. Then I'll have the div in the middle, which I'm just going to call middle column. And the div on the right we'll call Anna Y. Oops, Y. Okay, so they're going to be our 3 major divs. Now, within this one, I'm going to have image and a Twitter feed, but I'll leave that for now. And within the right-hand side one, we're going to have the same. And the middle one is where all of our pipe stuff is going to happen. So I'm going to have a heading, obviously. Heading 1 there, Queensland State Election 2012. Okay, and then underneath that I'm going to have a left column and the right column. So the left column is going to have my news and the video and the so the live streaming news feed, and then the right column is going to have the videos and the map. So I'll go div, and I'll just give this a class of left column, and then another one, div with a class of right column. Okay, and in left column we'll have a div ID of news, and also a div with the ID of what do we call that? Let's call that ABC News 24 feed. And back down to my right column here, where I'm going to have div with an ID of, I'll call this ID YouTube. And below that is going to be the div under that ID of map. Okay, so that should take care of all of our divs, and now I should just be able to insert the badges in the appropriate places, and then we can style them. Okay, so let's start with the text news feed as opposed to the live streaming video one, and this is going to be based on this pipe here. Now actually to embed the badge is really quite simple. It's a couple of lines of JavaScript, and it's actually something that you can copy and paste. The easiest thing to do is so on this interface for the pipe, you should be able to see this here. Okay, this link to get as badge. If you click on that, it will pop up this little window, and it will give you pre-built code to embed it in various different platforms, so you can embed them as a badge on your blog if you want. The one that we want to take is the one on the far end, which is sort of the generalized embed one. And when you click on that, it will give you a bit of code here which you can just copy and paste. Now before we do that, I'll just mention that there's a couple of things you can customize about this before you actually copy and paste that, and you can do that by clicking on this link here which says customize the size, type and settings of your badge. So we'll click on that. Okay, so here it gives you a few different options. The first one is what kind of badge would you like, and this is only giving me the one option because I don't have it's not images and it's not geolocated stuff. I don't have the option for a gallery or a map. But if you did have a pipe that had those, you could come here and change that option so that you could embed the map or the gallery view instead of the list. So at the moment that's my only option, and then you can also specify the width and height here. Now I'm not going to do that because you can also specify that in the code, and we'll probably need to play around with those values a little bit just to make sure everything lines up, and it'll be easier to do that just by modifying the code. But once you've done that, you can go next and it will take you back to the previous screen, and it will generate a new version of that code to copy and paste. Okay, so clicking on embed again, and there's the code there. All I'm doing is copying that, going back to my HTML page, and wherever I want that badge to appear, which is inside this news div, I'm just going to paste that script, and you can see all it's doing is putting in these script tags here and then pointing to a JavaScript file which is hosted on Yahoo servers, and it's sending it some parameters about that pipe. Okay, so you'll notice that, I'll just make this bigger. Okay, so you'll notice that it's requesting a file called list badge, which makes sense because we're requesting a list. If it was a map, it would be map badge. If it was a gallery, it would be, I think, image badge or something else related to that. And then these values here are ones that tell the pipe, firstly, it tells it which pipe it actually is that we want to get the data from. And so this big long string of numbers and letters here relates to the pipe ID, which if I look back at the pipe, you'll notice in every URL to every pipe, one of the parameters in the URL is ID here, and you can see that's the exact same big long string there. Okay, so each pipe that anyone creates in Yahoo Pipes is represented by its own unique string like that. And the important thing to remember is that if you save a new copy of a pipe or you create a new pipe, it's going to generate a new ID. So what might happen is you might create a web page where you embed a badge, but then you decide to create a copy to modify it a bit more. What you're going to need to do is, if you want to embed that new badge instead of the old one, is just go back to this bit of code here and get the new pipe ID, which you can always grab from the URL, either there or this here, which is essentially the same URL. Okay, so that's important to remember. If we were linking straight to the badges that Cassie created, then this would be a different ID up here. Just as if you've all saved the badge to your own account, then your pipe ID here is going to be different, obviously, to the one that I've saved to my account and that everyone else has saved to their accounts. Okay, so but the important thing to remember is the pipe ID there. That's how it tells this JavaScript file which badge to get the data from. Then this here, the B-type list, obviously that's telling it again that it wants the list. And then if we want to add width and height parameters, we can add them in this same format here. So we can say width colon and then give it a number, and similarly with height. Okay, but you can see that's already works there. Okay, and it's actually embedded at some default width and height settings this badge kind of exactly or very similarly to how it appears just here. So we can see that these news stories all match up. Okay, and because every time I refresh this page, it's going to fetch the data from that badge, from that pipe again, and every time that pipe is refreshed, it's going to be fetching the data from those news feeds again. It means every time I update this page, automatically the content is updated for me. Okay, so that's what we were kind of talking about earlier. Is this is very dynamic. I don't have to go back into this website every time someone posts a new news story about the election and then manually enter it in myself. This will go away, and as soon as the website or websites that these news stories are being pulled from updates, this will automatically update it for me. Okay, so this is the whole idea of why we use these tools or these dynamic processes to access live real-time data like this. It's because we can do it once, leave it, and then anytime the data changes, we don't have to worry about updating. All we have to do is refresh the page and the new information is there. Now that becomes particularly useful in something like this, where within the next couple of days, this information is going to change, probably every few minutes or even more frequently. So there's no way I'm going to sit there and furiously try and enter that new information in as it comes in. All I have to do is preset this, and then come Saturday I can just hit refresh and I can find out the latest news and the latest tweets and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so that's essentially the process of inserting a badge. Now, for this to become a mashup, we need at least one more data source, and all I have to do is essentially the same process but for this YouTube div here. So I'm going to go over to the Queensland election YouTube search badge. I'm going to do the same thing, click get as badge, let's click embed. I will copy the embed code and paste in the appropriate place. Okay, and there you go. You can see that the YouTube search feed is also in there. Okay, so now technically this web page is now a mashup. It has two completely separate independent data sources presented in the one interface. Not a particularly useful interface, but technically this qualifies as a mashup. Okay, it's live data. If any new information comes up when I refresh this page, it will automatically come up. Okay, so that pretty much covers getting badges out of Yahoo pipes into the web page. So hopefully you'll agree it's actually quite easy. Really, all you're doing is copy and pasting code, understanding what these parameters mean, and knowing, what you should already know, how to set up divs so that you can then lay them out in a certain way. So what I'll do now is move on to those two side columns, and I'm going to start pulling even more data from different data sources. So let's do the pictures of each of the candidates first of all, and I thought about two options for this. I thought I could dynamically pull the image that they've each put on their Twitter profiles, and then anytime they update those, that will be re-embedded. But I decided in the end I'd go with the images that are on the Wikipedia pages for each of those. So all I'm going to do is, that's not going to get me very far. All I'm going to do is go to the Wikipedia page for each of these, and I'm going to copy the image URL for the embedded image here, and I'm going to go back to my web page and insert an image tag and paste the URL to that. Okay, so even this really is part of the mashup, and it's still live data. Even though this probably doesn't get updated very often, if this image does get updated, because I haven't saved it to my server and am just embedding the image locally, because I'm loading it always from the remote address. If this image changes, then that will automatically be updated in my mashup as well. Yep.
Why not just the broken link then? If they change it, the name would be different.
Yeah, it depends. If they keep the image name the same, it will update. If they change it, in this case, it probably won't be a broken link. It will probably always point to this, because I don't think they actually will delete the file. I just have it somewhere not published. Yeah. Okay, so I'll do the same thing for an apply. Okay, and my original idea for this was actually to embed this whole sort of information panel in the web page, which is something I can't unfortunately do with the badges method, but that's something that we can do with slightly more complex methods that I'll show you next week, is embedding sections of a web page. Okay, alright, so same thing, go to apply down here, set the image, paste the source, and it should be down here somewhere. Let's try that again, maybe. Alright, don't really want that large version. Let's try that again. Alright, there we go. Okay, so now I've got the pictures of the two candidates. What I might do now is actually, now that I've got some content in each of these three columns, is just start to lay these out. So what I'm going to do is, I want to have three columns, so I'm going to have a middle one, and then I'm going to have sort of a left floated one and a right floated one. So what I'm going to have to do is grab this Anably one and move it up above the middle column there. And I'm going to start adding some CSS to my HTML. Now you can do this in a external style sheet if you want. For simplicity's case, I'm just going to do an embedded style sheet here. Okay, and so I've got my div with the ID of Campbell Newman, and I'm going to give that a set width, and I'm going to set it to the width of this image. I'm going to let that determine the width, which is, if I use, okay, and I'm using the code inspector in Chrome here, but Firefox will do a similar thing. Again, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, this is going to be a really useful tool when it comes to doing the mashups, because it will allow you to inspect the code, especially the code that's been generated by the badges, but I'll show you that again in a second. Okay, but I can see using the metric section here that that image is 220 pixels wide by 252 pixels high. So I will make this div 220 pixels wide. It should be the exact same width of that image. And the Anably one, I'll do the same thing. Width 220 pixels. Okay, and I'm going to float Campbell left. Actually, probably philosophically, I should put him on the right and a Bly on the left, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so there's left and right, and I've got pretty low resolution on the screen, but it doesn't matter. And I'm going to want all of this content to sit within a middle column here. So the way I'm going to do that is, rather than set a specific width for that middle column, what I think I'll do is just give it a margin. So, and if I'm doing this CSS a different way to what you might do it, don't worry. This is not necessarily the right way. There's plenty of different ways of achieving the same effect with CSS, as I'm sure you'll know. It's just the way I've decided to do it. So margin 0, let's go to 30 pixels either side. All right, and that will sit the middle column nicely like that. Okay, and this is my basic layout now. So now that I've got that, what I might do is embed the Twitter feeds for each of these candidates underneath here. And as I said before, you could, if you want, do this with the Yahoo pipe for the Twitter feed. You could embed it the exact same way that we embedded either of these two badges. But I did say I would show you the alternative because Twitter and Yahoo pipes doesn't always work. And fortunately, that is dead easy as well. I'm just going to do a Google search here for Twitter widget. Okay, and on this first result, it comes up with a page here, which, again, very similar to creating the badge. This allows you to generate a predefined widget based on either a Twitter profile or a Twitter search. And so we've got the options of embedding it in a website or Facebook. I'm going to choose website. All right, and okay, so it actually gives you 4 options. The one I'm going to use is the profile widget, but I could just as easily have used this search widget, and I've not included this in this example, but you could just do the search here. Okay. All right, and you can see in this preview of what it will look like. It will just give you tweets based on reverse chronological order from most recent to least recent based on your search terms here. So again, a lot of this is going to be about playing around with the search terms and the filtering and all that stuff, trying to get the best possible inputs to return the best results. Okay, but I'm not actually going to embed that. What I'm going to embed is a profile widget. And again, I'm just going to use Google to find the official accounts of Campbell Newman and Anna Bly. Alright, so this one. Okay, this is not, okay. Alright, so it looks like the official Campbell Newman Twitter account is this. Okay, so all I have to do is find the username of the Twitter profile that I want to create a badge for, enter it in there. Okay, and no, the underscore should be there, I think. Might just need that. No, that's okay. I'm fairly sure this will actually work. For whatever reason, the preview is just not working, but that's okay. Once we embed it in the web page, we should see that it works. Okay, then we can go to preferences and we can set a few different things. Do I want it to poll for new results? Yes, I do. You can tell it to either include or not include a scroll bar. By default, we'll just kind of auto scroll. I will do that, and let's just say, not 100% sure what these do, but I'm sure you can find some documentation that explains it. But let's just, why not load all tweets? And I think this one is how many you want to display at a time. Let's just go, I don't know, let's say 30. Sounds good. Now we can also adjust the appearance here, which is handy. It means it will pre-do the CSS styles for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of the startings of a color scheme relating to the political parties. Okay, so the LNP, their color's kind of blue. The ALP, their color's red. So I'm going to reflect that in the Twitter widgets. So for the background color, we'll do Campbell's, can be, there you go, some shade of blue. Tweet background, I'll leave, tweet background I'm going to set to white, so it kind of matches the background of my web page, which means I will make the tweet text black, and links I'm going to make the same color as this background color, like that. Okay, so usually this will work, this preview will work, but I don't think there's a problem. I don't think there's a problem with the widget. It's just that preview that's not working. So that's fine. Once I've done that, I can also specify the dimensions, which I want to do to match my the width of that div, which I set to 220 pixels. And the height, again, I'm going to play around with this value later, but let's just say 500 pixels. Actually, auto width might be alright. Let's do that. Alright, so again, all of these variables are going to be present in the code somewhere, so we can always go and modify those in the code as well. So we hit finish and grab code. Again, it just gives us a little JavaScript which we can copy and paste into the appropriate place in our document, which is going to be directly below the image of Campbell. Now, I probably don't need to put this in its own div, but we'll see. Yeah, okay, that looks alright. Alright, and now we have a nice, neatly aligned, 220 pixel wide Twitter feed containing all of the most recent tweets. And you should notice that this updates as well. I think based on this interval value here, which is in milliseconds, so I believe that will update every 30 seconds. So I had slightly different settings when I was doing this last night, and it actually just slowly added them one at a time. So there's a few things you can play around with there to get it to display in whichever way you want. For now, this is fine. Just having tweets here. So you can see, which is also good, because when we use real-time data, how up-to-date the data is kind of defines how relevant it is. It's good actually as well that you can see that this data was actually only created 4 hours ago, and then yesterday, within the last couple of days. So we can actually see it is useful if you're displaying real-time data, if you can, to show when that data was actually created, so people know how relevant it is. Okay, so that's that side done. We'll do the same thing for the right-hand side. So all I'm going to do is go back here and let's have a search for Okay, so NBY's official Twitter account. Alright, that looks pretty legit. So again, I'm just going to copy the username there. And go there. We'll keep those at the default for now. Color, we'll change to some sort of red. Alright, looks alright. And looks good. Still got the same settings for our previous ones. That's good. I'll click finish, grab the code, copy that, paste in the right place, which is just below the image of NBY. Okay, there it is. So I've got our two side columns sorted. And now just very quickly, in the time I've got left, I'll just finish off this middle section. So what I'm going to do is, I've got, as you can see in there, I've got the two divided columns within that middle column. So that's class left column and class right column within middle column. So we can go middle column dot left column. That's how I named it. OKC. Okay, and we'll give this width of, let's say, let's add some arbitrary values here that will be close but not perfect. Float left, and we'll do the same for the right column, but we'll float right. Okay, so they're side by side, and now I'm going to add those other two things just by embedding those. So there was the KIB204 news live stream, which again I honestly just Googled for that. Alright, and I found this video here. Had a look at the page source, and I can see that this is embedded as a Flash object here, which I can simply just copy this HTML and paste into my own page. Inside this div. Okay, there it is. Obviously, I'm going to need to size that down a little bit. So, somewhere in here, there is going to be width and height parameters. So, I already kind of figured out these numbers previously, but it did take a little bit of trial and error. Okay, but knowing that my column is, well, my column div is 350 pixels wide, and if I use a 16:9 ratio, then you can figure out that it's about 211 pixels high. Alright, that fits fairly nicely. I could put some more padding around that if I wanted, but I'll leave that like that for now. And now the map is see. Alright, rather than researching for this, I'm just going to go and find the exact link. Alright, I had this, so let's go sites. Okay, okay, so this is the map. This is the map that I found, which shows where the leaders have been campaigning. All right, and in any Google Maps, you can quite easily embed that by going to this link symbol here, clicking on that, and this bottom one here is the one that you want. So I'm just going to grab that. And paste that into my map div here. Okay, and it shows up there. Now I'm not going to spend any more time laying this out because we're going to run out of time. But all it would require for these to line up neatly is that I modify the height of these badges, which you could saw that we could specify in the preferences, but also in the code, like I'll demonstrate just here. So if we go to, here we go, the badge here. So as I mentioned, all we have to do is add some parameters here. So we can add one called height. And there it is, height. So the parameter always has to be in quotes, and then there's a column, and then the value has to be in quotes as well. So let's just say I put, I don't know, 450 pixels. Okay, so you can see now that the height of that badge has been modified as well. So I could do a similar thing to this one, but actually the last thing I want to show you is, because we haven't actually changed the style of any of this content very much, so what I'll just quickly do in the time that we have left is demonstrate what I was mentioning before about wanting to have the thumbnails for the videos larger, because I care more about the image of the thumbnail than the accompanying text. So the way I'm going to do this is, now this HTML that's within here is going to be pre-generated for me. So I actually have to find out what sort of classes and IDs that the Yahoo Pipes badge has already assigned this, in order that I can target that with my CSS. So you can see here that this link, or this badge here, has a whole lot of HTML to embed that data, okay, and it applies all its own classes so that you can target the various different elements, and some of them you know, have kind of abstract names like YBX, YBH, and so forth, and others have names like pipes thumbnail, pipes holder, pipes image description. Okay, so these are all classes which you can target with your CSS just like you had created them yourself. So for example, this pipes thumbnail image, if I want to make that larger, what I can see here is that the image itself is within a div called, with a class of pipes thumbnail. So all I need to do to style that is go up and create a style with class called, so I'll target it within the YouTube div first of all. So there's YouTube, and then inside of there somewhere there is a div with a class called pipes thumbnail. And then underneath that there is the actual image element itself, and I can set the width of that to be whatever I like. So let's say 120 pixels and height 90 pixels. Again, I've already pre-figured out these values, so that was just trial and error. Okay, and you can see now that those thumbnails have been made larger. And if I inspect this element now, I can look over here on my styles and I can see that the match CSS rules contains both CSS that's come from Yahoo Pipes itself, but also now these ones that I've applied as well. Okay, so again, that's why Firebug or similar tools are going to be really useful. And just as one very last thing, let's just say I want to make this text a lot smaller, then I can right click on this, inspect element. I can see that that text is within a div with a class called pipes description. So I can go back to my code and just create a style called YouTube.pipes description, and I can set the font size to be whatever I want. Let's say 70%. Alright, we'll go back. Okay, and there you can see now there it is. There's my font style applied. Okay, so even though this HTML has been generated by Yahoo Pipes, because we can inspect the code and see that certain classes have been applied to it, we can write our own CSS styles that target these classes and actually style the content within these pipes as well. So we do have some flexibility on styling how the content looks within the pipes, and then also as the page layout as a whole. Okay, so we've pretty much run out of time, so I might leave that example there. I will post the code for a slightly more finished example that I finished up with last night. It just had a bit more styling on the fonts, and the layout was kind of finalized as well. But just to see that this actually works. Okay, you can see that alright, I can click here and I can see the embedded news feed. If it will load. It should load. I might need to open this in. Okay, you'll have to take my word for it that should work. I don't really have time for it to load, but this works, and you can see this provides a link back to the full map as well. The Twitter feeds, you should be able to click on any of the tweets and provide a link back to those, as well as each of the pipe badges that you embed. You can click on the little Powered by Yahoo Pipes icon, and it should take you back to the pipe that provide that data as well. So that's another good thing to keep in mind, that to kind of solidify the integrity of your data, it's always good to link back to the source of where you got the data, so people can judge for themselves that the data that you're providing is good quality data and not just stuff that you've made up. Okay, so we'll have to finish that there. As I said, I'll upload the screencast. I'll upload the code for a finished example. Are there any quick questions that anyone has about anything I did there that I could answer really quickly? Yep.
How did you search?
I actually found that embedded in one of the news sites. I was looking for more news pages to combine with that news feed there, and I found that embedded in one of the news sites. I'm not sure who actually created it, but yeah. So I saw it embedded. It had this link already. I clicked back to it and then re-embedded that. Yeah. So I mean, really, that's probably the way you'll come up with most of this. You'll think of a topic, you'll start researching it, looking around it, and you'll just find bits and pieces from all over the place, and you'll start to figure out the kinds of data sources that are good for embedding in a mashup, and it will most likely evolve organically during a research phase like that, I would think. So that's probably the phase you should be in now, is kind of deciding on your topic. You know, just doing as much research as you can, trying to find different data sources, and then once you've figured the data sources you want, figure out how you're going to lay them out on the page, how you're going to style them. Once you've got a subject as well, you can think about how you're going to theme it. So I haven't really done a lot of theming or anything to this, other than sort of going for the color scheme. But that's another thing you can start thinking about adding to your finalized mashup as well. Yeah.